All right, so this is my friend Trevor, and he's graciously agreed to be a part of this blog post. And Trevor is someone I know personally, I've known for lots of years, and he is currently been in the process of looking to network for new opportunities. And so, Trevor, thanks so much for being a part of this today. I'm going to start with a quick question. So, what ways, first of all, what ways have you kind of been looking for a new position? And what tools have you been using in that search?
Yeah, so I started looking more aggressively for new roles about 2.5, maybe 3 years ago. And when I first started, I kind of did the more traditional route of, just getting my resume up to par and doing a lot of research and targeting. Like I was doing all the research online and then targeting specific places I'd go after. And then after a while, I wasn't seeing a ton of movement from that. So I started using platforms like LinkedIn. I used Indeed a little bit. I would use other programs that were specific to the type of work I was looking for. But yeah, so I used a lot of networking, social media, connecting sort of platforms, and yeah, and applied to a lot of positions. And um, most of the time, I would not apply to a position until I had already done some preliminary research on the company, what the role was going to look like, if I could answer some of the questions about salary and other things. So by the time I would get to applying, I had already put in a fair amount of thought work into even initiating or filling out that application.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And I know that's one of the things I educate a lot of candidates on is making sure that they do some of that pre-work, some of the pre-networking, using a lot of the different avenues that are available to them, like Indeed and LinkedIn and things like that. So you've made it fairly far with some companies. You've been in communication with recruiters and like corporate recruiters that work for the companies and third-party recruiters or agencies. I know we've talked about that a little bit. What have been some of your frustrations that you've experienced in communication with both third-party recruiters and corporate recruiters and companies?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably more than we have time for the blog post, right? But this doesn't have to be a therapy blog. So I would say my main one is probably the way in which the conversations end, how abrupt that can be, and then the lack of follow up on the other side of that. So some of these companies I would get into, the second or third video interview, kind of face interview. And then, you leave those calls and they would say, hey, we'll get back to you about the next round. And sometimes they're like, hey, we'd like you to go to the next round. Here's what it's going to look like. Sometimes you would get a generic email. Most of the time, I would get a generic email that I could tell was pretty much cut and paste. Maybe they changed my name. Sometimes they didn't even do that. Or they would add maybe a line in there to sort of customize it. But it was the stock like, hey, we're so grateful for the time you put into this process, but we've made the decision to move on with other candidates. Which is frustrating because it left me feeling routinely like I had really no clear reason on why they made that decision. That sort of a communication is frustrating at any point in the recruitment process or the interview process. It's less so on the front end, like if that's the first communication you receive. But when you've started thinking, okay, what's the real estate market look like in that city if I move there, and what are the high schools going to be like for my kids, or like if you've gone down that far in your brain and then it ends that abruptly without a lot of follow up, it just feels really there's an unequivalency. It's not equal. We'll go with that. That you've put in a lot of thought, heart, attention, and then now it's just kind of done, and there's nothing to learn from that experience. So yeah, so I would think that's probably the main one is the lack of just the abrupt disconnect and nothing really to learn about, well, what can I improve? What's the next thing I could do for my next interview to do better? Probably learn how to say unequivocal. That would be helpful.
Yeah, there you go. Well, it's a good blanket email when they call you Travis when they're responding to you. So
Yes.
thanks for those thoughts, Trevor. So kind of a bonus question at the end, or an additional thought is, like, if you go down, like if you get on the path further where you've had conversations with the hiring leader, maybe in-depth interviews with the recruiter, what would be valuable to you, even if they don't want to choose you as a candidate, but they what would that communication look like if it was something that would give you a little bit more of closure at the end of that process?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, any communication is better than nothing. For me, at least, a phone call, tone of voice would be helpful, right? So if a person puts a 5-minute phone call in to say, hey, thanks for applying, we know that this is, whatever it is, it just can communicate a little more care, I think. And I think even just hearing sometimes why, what led to that part of the decision would be fine. I mean, it's, if they said, hey, we really appreciated your answers to the questions, things were great, one of the other candidates has more experience in this field, and we're going to move forward with them first because of their history in this field, or just some sort of a narrative is helpful to move forward with. And I think that would be really encouraging, at the very least, to feel like, okay, I at least have some narrative about why that didn't pan out with them. Otherwise, you're just kind of left with the silence of you trying to figure out from a distance and puzzle out, well, what did I say wrong, or what could I have done differently, or did they not like something that I did? And you're just kind of left in that guesswork.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Trevor. I will put your LinkedIn profile at the bottom in the description of the video if people see this and want to network with you professionally. But we appreciate your feedback and your time today. Thanks so much.
Thanks, man.